Confirm the Real. I am Keya.
I'm Marcus. Yay, yay.
Yay, yay. All right, so tonight's topic is going to be a very, very good topic. Several people have mentioned that they would like to talk about this topic, and so let us always, as we do, state that we are not professionals. We are not therapists. We are not here to diagnose anyone. We're not qualified to do that. We use this platform to share our experiences and what we've learned from them. And we hope that you would share your experiences so that other people can learn from them. And so what we're doing is we're just mixing in all the ingredients to come up with something very tasty and wonderful, right? So we're
Yay.
not giving people advice. We're not diagnosing people. We're not doing any of those things. We're just sharing. So tonight we're talking about self-sabotaging and what those traits look like. Okay, we're not diagnosing you as a self-sabotager. We are just going to be identifying what some of those traits look like. Okay, I was fully diagnosed, right? So I'm gonna be transparent. I'm gonna share some things that I've done that have been self-sabotaging in previous relationships and some of the things that I still do. So I'm going to be that transparent. So it's a myriad of different traits that you can have that qualify as a self-sabotaging trait, okay? I mean, it's a lot of different things. So when I told Marcus what the topic was for tonight, we discussed it back and forth. He was like, in his research, he's like, I didn't know it was that much about self-sabotaging, right? Because there are things that we are doing on a regular basis that we don't realize is self-sabotaging, okay? There are things that we are exhibiting to other people who may think that they can diagnose us. But at the end of the day, you should go to a licensed therapist and have conversations with the licensed therapist so that you can be diagnosed, because you can have traits of something that does not make you that. One of the things that I just talked about and I posted in one of my groups is a narcissist. People are out here constantly like giving people the narcissist title, but I think all of us have narcissistic traits. Like, I think a lot of people have narcissistic traits. That doesn't make you a narcissist because you have the traits. So having self-sabotaging traits does not make you a self-sabotager. So just remember that. I don't want people to get up in arms about this and think we're attacking them, okay? I'm calling myself out and I'm talking about my business. So, you ain't got to deal with yourself if you don't want to. All right. So, babe, before I get started, you want to just talk briefly about, because you kind of seem shocked about some of the things that qualified as self-sabotaging.
Yeah, we have a lot of things. I'm looking at all the signs and traits of self-sabotage, and even though you may not be a self-sabotager, you tend to have some of the traits, and a lot of times a trait can lead to a ineffective relationship. And with the dark platform, it's all about trying to have an open dialogue, open platform, to make a better you for a better relationship or a happier life. And things I've saw, like coping mechanisms and some of the things in your childhood can affect your relationship. And babe, I was just when we talked about 8 minutes ago, and we was talking about my my biggest self-sabotaging trait,
Don't tell it yet.
I'm not.
Okay.
I was looking at it, it just, I had that moment like, yo, fuck, I got it. I know when the shit came from, or
Mm.
possibly came from,
Mm.
So it's like, well, I'm still the shit, but it's like when I wasn't the shit that I am, can leak, can still blossom like a weed in a flower bed,
Yeah.
and something like a good flower bed, you got to pick out the weeds so the flowers can flourish and bloom and blossom.
So I'm glad you said like it's almost like you kind of figured out where those traits came from, or
Possibly, yep.
possibly where they came from.
Hmm.
Because I think like sometimes if you pause, you will discover that where some of those things came from. Like, of course, you should get diagnosed, but I think that you can also, through self assessment, determine, oh, okay, this may have come from this, or that may have come from that, or whatever. But we're going to go ahead and get into the conversation because I really got a lot of stuff I want to cover here. So, I want to talk about my number one self sabotaging trait. Okay. It's still present for me. It's not as present. My number one self sabotaging trait. As you researched it, babe, and you read through different ones, just take a guess. No guess is a wrong guess or a trouble guess. Like, which one do you think is the one out of all the different, because it's so many, out of all the traits of self sabotaging, which one do you think is my number one?
Um, one of the things I don't know say what it is. It's just your past and your environment growing up helped lead to some of your self sabotaging.
Mm-hmm.
And I know your history. We discuss it a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and some of that trickles upwards into the. I love that cup. Trickles up to the surface. So that one, that yeah. So one of the things is that coping mechanism
Mm-hmm.
is is a self sabotaging trait. So that I think that's one of them that I possibly could be. I'm like I said, this is guessing. And as I was trying to look through some of these notes, because I don't take good notes, but even some of the things of I hate to say, but sometimes the lack of trust, or like think not say trust, but think that some things are sometimes people are doing something, not really doing something
Mm-hmm.
through pat. It's like, yo, there's no need for nothing like that.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just because of past things. It is. It is what it
Like
is.
my head's always on the swivel.
Yeah, yeah. I got my ass reamed on that one. Yeah.
Okay. So good guesses. You didn't guess my number one. My number one is I have ignored my intuition. Now, the reason why that's a self-sabotaging trait. The reason why I say that my number one self-sabotaging trait has been ignoring my intuition is because through ignoring my intuition, it's created negative self-talk to myself. Like, you tripping. Um, that's not what it is. Um, you don't deserve better. So just deal with that because again, you tripping. They're not that bad. Um, they're not that bad. They just had issues like you. You had issues. You grew up like this. So you need to be understanding of other people, right? Even though it may be toxic, even though it might hurt me, even though it might be me trusting them over myself, that's all self sabotaging because And the reason it's self-sabotaging is because I'm not choosing happiness. I'm not choosing joy. I'm choosing to just deal with things. And so when I started to trust myself, when I started to believe in what I felt, that was the greatest joy and the greatest gift and reward I could give to myself. Because I wasn't tolerating things that didn't lead to my happiness or my joy or satisfaction. Because what would happen is, so it would kind of trickle down. So it'd be all these different things. And I kind of wrote down some of the things. So I said, me ignoring my intuition has led to a very toxic form of self-harm. And quite frankly, it's a defense mechanism. And it caused me to ignore red flags. It caused me to care too much about what other people would think about me trusting my thoughts and feelings. It caused me not to be in my authentic self. Okay, I lost Marcus. I'm inviting him back in. It caused me to not communicate effectively, which is big. Sorry, y'all. Okay, I think he's coming back in. Says adding. I think his hotel internet being janky. Okay, while I'm waiting for him to come back in, I'm just going to keep talking. It caused me to even play games with people. Like, I didn't see relationships as relationships. I saw it as a way to play games. Like, oh, you don't call me, I ain't going to call you. Or you ain't text me first, so I ain't text you. And so it wasn't healthy relationships that I was forming with people. It was, I'm sending you another invite. So don't request, I'm sending you an invite. You on your 5G. Okay. So it caused just other toxic traits, cheating, having a lack of boundaries, a lack of self-love. So all of that pretty much came from me not following and trusting my intuition. So that's pretty much why that's my number one, because me not following my intuition led to me having a lot of these different traits that come with that. Especially ignoring red flags. And then not being the authentic version of who I am. So glad to have you back. So it really has been a form of what's the term? Flight. What is it? Flight or something. I don't know. I can't remember.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight, right? So I was always in that space because I was like, well, should I trust my intuition? No, don't trust your intuition. You're wrong. You ain't bad. You're not that good. How can you say they're bad? How can you say they're this? You're the one that's bad. You're the one that got issues. You're the one that came from this. You're the one that does this. So all of this negative self-talk was leading me to not listening to my inner voice, which was trying to protect me. And it wasn't about everybody. But in those instances when I didn't trust myself, for instance, I would say to someone else, hey, I kind of feel a little uneasy about such and such. And then they would say, no, nothing's wrong. And then I would go with what the other person said. And then what I said in terms of my intuition would actually be true. So then I would find myself resenting other people who may have said to me, oh, no, Keya. But then it comes out later and I'm like, well, that's your own fault, right? Because You should have followed your own intuition, not listen to what somebody else said. You know what you felt. So it's like this never ending cycle, um, that I was just kind of perpetuating in my head and in my heart, and it was leading to a bunch of problems. Because one of the things that I labeled myself was I was a potential whore. You know what a potential whore is?
Yeah, explain that one to me.
A potential whore. I saw potential in people, and I would be like, "Oh, but they got potential."
Oh, okay.
So, so there's nothing wrong with giving them an opportunity, because we all have hard times and we all go through things, and none of us know and so everybody that had potential, they weren't doing anything. They weren't making strides to do anything, but I saw potential, and so I was like, oh, okay, well, that's good. I was addicted to people who had struggles, because I had struggles. So I would be in relationships with people who were struggling. So now we together struggling, right? And so that's why I call myself the potential whore, because I got in relationships with people, even friendships with people who I saw potential in, but there was no prize there. Potential was there, but there was no prize in this relationship. And so I was continuously setting myself up in these relationships because I never felt good enough. That's ultimately what it boiled down to. I didn't feel good enough. And so I was like, well, no, you should deal with that. You should take that on. You should take the project on, right? And you'll hear a lot of men say, like, I'm not doing the Build-A-Bear project. And that's what we're talking about when we say terms like that, because I always saw potential in people, and I always wanted to take the challenge, and I always wanted to believe in people, and I always wanted to support people. And that was due to my lack of belief in myself and the lack of worth that I had, right? And so that's why that's my biggest self-sabotage, is because I constantly welcomed in potential. So that's why I labeled myself the potential whore. Because I was like, you can come. I wasn't like Oprah, you get a car, you get a car, but you can come in, you know what I'm saying? I'll give you love. But none of those people were deserving of that, because that's all they were potential, and that's what they stayed being. So my number one was ignoring the intuition. So what are your comments about that?
You know that I think I do that a lot as well. Maybe not in relationships. Um, but part of my outlook is always like, what's the good in this? What's the good in that? And it leads to a self detriment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's through the optimistic, the overly optimistically view of life, you know. But we have with the optimistic view, overly optimistic view of life, there's also a balance, you know. There's no good without evil. And sometimes it's easy to forget the evil or turn your head so you don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens, you leave your back exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And when your back is exposed, you know, you get that rear naked chokehold as they do in the MAA. And now you tapping out. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know. So I can understand where you're coming from with that. And I'm guilty of it, not necessarily in a relationship, but just well in a
In general.
yes, there you go.
Yeah.
So I get it. Um, and I
So we're going to
think
talk about. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
and I was just saying that, you know, knowing that, especially from your aspect and your view, and not you overcome or constantly overcoming that, you know, I would think you should be in a better place, in a more self-protected place where you're not exposed to the
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah, and so what I'm going through, and what I have been going through as I realize this, because through therapy is how I, like, that's how I learned the traits of self sabotaging. I didn't know that that was self sabotaging, right? Because it didn't sound like a self sabotaging trait. But when I went through therapy, that came out like, well, you're self sabotaging. Well, then what happened was, and I know you may think this now, but I don't think it as strongly. I think I do it sometimes. Um, I think I do it rarely. I'll say that, because I had a point where I was on guard for everybody. Like, I didn't trust people. I didn't want to get close to people, all because I wasn't following my intuition earlier. So then now or later, I was like, okay, nope. So it was a for everybody.
No new
But well,
friends.
right. But then I became more open and was like, no, I can't be like that. I just have to, again, as I said when I went through the list, like, I have to pay attention to the red flags. I have to not care about what other people might think about the outcome of my decision. I have to be authentically who I am. I have to not repeat unhealthy um, relationship patterns. Like, there were things that I had to specifically, I had a lack of boundaries, and so I started to put those things into place. And that actually made me feel safe. That made me feel like I was doing something that was healthy for me, versus before, when I was not honoring my intuition, that led to me feeling uncomfortable. That led me to feeling like, in fact, and I can give you examples. There are several people who I was like, I could foresee them doing certain things, right? And then they did it. And so I'm like, because I ignored the certain red flags, and it was like I dishonored myself. That's what that is. When you don't listen to your intuition, it's like you think that you're not worthy enough to listen to yourself. And when my therapist, like, really broke this down for me, I was just like in awe. So when I go through those periods and those moments when I say that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to honor myself on this one. People don't typically get what I'm saying when I say that, because by honoring myself, I'm extending love to myself, and I'm showing myself that I have self-worth. I love myself and I care about myself enough to listen to me over listening to someone else, or caring about what someone else feels or thinks. So that is it on ignoring my intuition, unless you have any follow-up comments, babe.
I don't really have any follow-up comments. Um, I think one of the things I would have a challenge with that for myself is learning how to listen to that intuition, how to trust it, or even to even more depth, how to recognize the intuition. Because we all have it, we all just it's hard to be in tune with it.
Okay, so I'll talk about that just a little bit in terms of how I started to identify. So let me ask you a question first. Have you ever walked into a place and you kind of felt uneasy or uncomfortable?
Yes.
And you felt like, maybe something's not right about this, right? Um, Remember the cigar lounge we went to, and I don't remember where it was. We had dropped B off somewhere.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. We walked in, and it was just a feeling of uneasiness, right? Couldn't necessarily put our finger on it, but there was some sense of uneasiness. So I said, I don't want to sit inside of here and smoke.
I remember.
Remember? And so we
Hmm.
sat outside. And then I still didn't feel right. I was like, nope, we got to go. But you felt it too, right?
Yeah, to me, it felt as a rudeness in that scenario. It was like a rudeness, like one. the one person working there was cool, but the owner itself, it was like, yeah, it's like it, it's dark in here, and it ain't because of the light type feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And
But it wasn't for me. It wasn't just that. It was the emotion for me that came up. Now you're not going to be able to identify that if you're not spending time by yourself, if you're not getting in tune with yourself, if you don't know, like, I know when I feel great, I know when I feel okay, I know when I feel sad, I know when I feel like I need to be around friends, I know when I feel like I need to be around family, because I know myself. I've learned myself. I've come to that understanding about self. So in order for you to be able to identify certain things, you have to know yourself.
okay,
So being in tune with yourself continues to raise your intuitive vibe. So the more I understand me, the more I understand the inner me.
babe, that might be. Even though I don't want to get too far off topic, but I think that's something we could practice one day, or it's gonna take several days. That I want to maybe do an exercise one day if I remember, bouncing off feelings in certain environments, and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
babe, do you feel this way? How do you feel? And see if we co-vibing. Maybe we can kind of match our wavelengths a little bit. That could be a good exercise. That's something
Or I
that's
could
we
just
can
tell
do in the
you when
future.
I identify like a feeling or something. But my intuition is not gonna be your intuition. Like, that's the thing about it. It's my intuition is mine. It's what I feel. That's why if I tell you I feel something, sometimes you don't feel it because it's not yours. You see what I'm saying?
I hear you.
So it's like an individual thing. You have your level of intuition that you feel, and I have my level of intuition. The more I am in tune with myself, the more my intuition raises,
Okay.
the more I'm aware. But we're not gonna go all the way there. I just wanted to kind of, when you said you didn't know how to identify it, and remember, the only reason I know this is because I did what?
Self-sabotage. And
And what else?
you got
I went to
therapy.
therapy. So
Oh yeah,
it's
the
not
T
like I
word.
didn't just make this up. I didn't create it. It just came through me doing things and identifying, hey, I'm repeating habits. I'm repeating things, and I need to find out the root of this, right? It was at that time where I wanted to understand myself and my actions and why I was in the same situations over and over. Okay.
Okay.
So let's move on. So I talked about my number one self-sabotage trait. Do you want to share yours? Because we spent way too much time on that.
Yeah. So I'll make mine quick because anyway, I'll make mine quick. Apparently, mine is
Not
I have a
apparently.
yes. I have. You crossing my
First step is
boundaries.
accountability. And I'm here for it. We just gonna be accountable. I just owned my shit, all of it. I took it. I didn't say apparently. I said this is what I did, and this is what I still do sometimes. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm a extreme people pleaser or excessive people pleaser. I ain't no people pleaser whore. I'm not doing that. But I am a people pleaser. And a lot of it is to my own detriment, and a lot of times too, it can be to my relationship. Because if you call me or say you need help or you need this or you got this situation, even though I don't want to deal with it, I'm gonna I'm like, okay, let's talk about it, let's do it, what do you need to do, let's blah blah blah. You know, and I can have something going on. I'm readjusting, and what I have going on it could be very important and vital, but because I'm always concerned about everybody else's happiness, it turns into a people pleasing thing. Um, and not setting those boundaries, I tend to ignore what's around me. Like my relationship, I have to, like I made people please over here, where I need to be focusing my relationship here, not realizing it's cutting this isolate my relationship in a negative way, you know, or I could people please too much even in my relationships. I'm always trying to see, are you good? You happy? You need this? You need that? And you're not even looking for that. I'm over pleasing. I'm overcompensating. And the crazy part when I was just thinking about this and discussing this with myself, and myself said to me, you know, Marcus, and I said, yes, this came from you know my some things that happened in my developmental stages in my life and my early years in life. Before I say this, I had a good childhood. I had a good childhood. There was really nothing super traumatic, but we all had some. Nobody had a perfect childhood. And one of the things I noticed just now was my aha moment was from the age of like 13 to like 15, 16, I was very isolated from other peers. My only social interaction would be at school. So after school or in the summertime, I would be by myself. Um, I tried after school athletics. You know, back I was kind of that's back in my clumsy stages when I wasn't this prime athletic specimen I am now. Um, so I wasn't a star athlete then. Hell, and I didn't really like sports then, so it really wasn't making any good. Um, so I was always isolated. So I was like, okay. So it led to my low self esteem, not having and not even how to interact socially as with friends. People like me in school. They were friends. They wanted me to do this, but I didn't know how to do it. You know, so even with interacting with women or girls at that age, I was like, huh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I didn't know how to really talk to girls. Then I was a chubby kid. I was a fat ass. I was a full figured child. So it was like that was nothing related to my self esteem. So it would mess with my confidence. And as I got older, when I was coming into myself, it would still affect me. So and to be friends with people, I would still people please and sometimes adopt their views instead of staying to my views, and
Mm-hmm.
that would lead to my people pleasing, and that's why I kind of like, oh, that makes sense. You know, this is why even now sometimes I even my comfort zone sometimes is just to retreat and go and be self isolate. And when I get upset, what I do, I go in my
Mm-hmm.
little box and be like, shit, I'll be all right. Give me a
Yeah.
while. And that's my comfort zone, and instead of trying to set my boundaries and stick to it. So,
Yeah.
and that's
And
it.
I think no is an uncomfortable word for you. Um, and I mean, I've noticed that, like, even saying no to me, no is a very uncomfortable word for you. And a lot of times, because I know that about you, I'll say, "Babe, like, really?" And you're like, "Well, what you thought I was gonna say? Of course, I'm gonna say yes to you." You know, even though there are times when you firm with me and you like, "Hey, check this out." But there are times where I can tell you're in that space, and that it makes you uncomfortable to have to say no to people. Or you'll say something to me and I'll be like, no, that ain't about to happen. And you're like, oh yeah, you're right. So it's like it's so habitual for you that you don't even think about it because you've done it for so long. It's actually been a concern of mine with B because he was isolated in that same even longer than you were. You know, always kind of been in that isolation space, not really knowing how to make friends, kind of having that socially awkward thing. And if you notice, that's one of his traits already. It's people pleasing. He wants to make sure everybody's happy. He wants to make sure, you're good, you got what you want. He's gonna go over and above to try to please people. And so it definitely is, I think, something that it's not a diagnosis, but it's just something to pay attention to. It's something to take notice of.
All right, so let me ask you this. This is just popped in my head with the habitual not saying no, always a yes person on that. And one of the things in my previous relationships, which I think also led to not working, sometimes a lot of times, you have to say no to have a stern stance and be um being that, hey, he means no, he has to set that, and I won't say boundary, but that, okay, yeah, he said no. It kind of is sometimes it can be an attraction to the opposite of the female. Hey, they like that no. I was always told that no. Sometimes they need to be here no, just
Mm-hmm.
because and I don't, and I'm like, don't necessarily always want to say no. And it's like people want, like, no, they need sometimes. I was told women need to hear no sometimes. They gotta be, they like to be that, I won't say submissive, but that be not dominated. I won't say dominated, but hear that extra confidence that they need to hear to be assured that, hey,
Leadership,
he's protecting me. Say what?
leadership,
Yeah,
leadership.
there you go. Fill in the blanks, damn it.
So it's just about leadership, right? So if you can't tell other people no, and you can't tell me no, then that lacks leadership, right? And so it's like you can't be so willing to please other people that you lack leadership in your home, or you lack leadership, with even the people around you. It's like I have to have that boundary in place so that people are aware of the fact that no, I'm not going to always tell you yes. And I actually think no is a great way to find out who is rocking with you for real. Because if I say no to you and you done talking to me, then this relationship was based on my yeses. So it's a perfect way to eliminate, as far as I'm concerned. So um, yes, people pleasing is your number one trait. Ignoring my intuition was my number one trait. And then I want to kind of talk about a couple of other traits real quickly. We won't go into it in depth like we did with the other two because time ain't playing. It's already
No.
7:40. So one of the other things that I did, which I would probably qualify as my second sabotage trait, is rejection of praise and compliments. So because of the feeling of unworthiness, because of my uncomfortable feeling, because of my childhood and how I felt about myself as a child, I would reject praise. I would reject compliments. I would redirect it. So, for instance, someone would say, "Oh, you look nice," or "I like that outfit." I would say something negatively about myself, therefore self-sabotaging myself. So if a man said to me, I'm in a relationship or potential relationship, "Oh, you look nice." No, I don't. Or I would say things like, "Well, I was an ugly duckling," right? So then people would feel uncomfortable because I would constantly talk about myself. "Oh yeah, I was skinny like olive oil. I was ugly." "Oh, I don't they would say something about what I had on, and I would be like, "Oh, I got that from Target," or "I got that from Walmart." I would downplay everything about myself, literally making people feel so uncomfortable that they would be like, "So I ain't gonna do this with you because I can't even compliment you. Every time I compliment you, you redirect my compliments, and I don't want to keep dealing with that."
So, babe,
So, uh-huh.
I do that to you a lot.
Yeah, you do.
I do. I'm not going to deny it. You'll compliment me because and I'll be like, okay, just allow. I'll just like, this over, and I do that. So I'm wholeheartedly with you on that one.
Yeah, and it comes from a feeling of unworthiness. It comes from a lack of praise or compliments from a male figure. already in my life that I didn't have in my life. My uncle, was the main male figure in my life, him and my grandfather, and he gave me constant praise. But when he died, I realized through therapy that his death felt like abandonment to me. And through that abandonment, it's almost like I didn't remember all the praise. I didn't remember all the compliments. So I'm left with nobody complimenting me or praising me that I cared about and loved. So now when other people said it to me, because you have to remember, I went from being a little kid who was teased for being ugly to a young adult, and people are like, oh, you're beautiful, you're this, you're that. I'm like, no, I'm not. That's bullshit. Like, and so I constantly was self-sabotaging potential relationships, people who actually did maybe like me. But because I spoke so negatively about myself, they're like, if you're speaking bad about yourself, yeah, I'm good. But me not realizing I was doing that. Another thing is perfectionism. And when people say it's not as it's not as prevalent, I guess, in relationships, but it can be. I think when people say like, I can't start a relationship. Like, I know some guys who have said, I can't start a relationship till everything's perfect. Like, what the hell is perfect? There's no such thing. Everybody on earth know there's no such thing as perfect. So that's an excuse, right? We kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday. That's an excuse. So it's like, I'll get in a relationship when it's perfect. Meanwhile, perfect ain't showing up for you. Meanwhile, you're not in a relationship. Meanwhile, you're getting older. So it's like, there is no perfect situation. I'm trying to wait till my money is perfect. My house is perfect. My car is perfect. Like, there is no perfect. So perfectionism to me is a cop out. But unless you are willing to kind of submerge into the truth of that and identify that these are some traits that you have, it's going to be hard to overcome those things.
Right. And in a relationship, that's considered high. When you're doing that, that's considered too high of expectations, unrealistic expectations, and we do that. This is supposed to be this way. This should be this way. This should all work out perfect. Everything should always fall in place like this. If I do this, do that, everything is perfect. Nothing, or you got, like you said, this money got to be right. This house got to be right. This is gonna be right. This has got to be right. And sometimes it's always a sabotage. Like, no, you're not. You're not gonna be a millionaire.
Yeah.
You're not going to. You're not going to always have the food is always not going to be perfect. Hell, you're going to make some nasty shit I ain't going to want to eat. I can't expect that. Oh, every time you cook, that shit should be perfect. No, it may be salty, but we expect everything to be perfect, and we do that on purpose. And guess what happens? We start speaking, looking to the negative every time. She can't cook this. She can't even do this right. She always fuck up the chicken. Every time she put popcorn in the microwave, it's burnt. No, we always look at the negative instead of saying, "Hey, man, she might have messed up this time, but other day she made some bomb ass lasagna and this and that." Or every time she come home, she's trying to make sure I'm fed. Or she's like, or he's come home. When he come home, he's like, okay, first thing he gonna do is make sure my gas tank is full. He's gonna do this, and that, instead of like, oh, he's got to put gas in my car. Now I gotta stop at the gas station. But what about the 1,000 other times where I get in the car and shit, I ain't gotta worry about the needle. I just get
you're
up.
right. You're right. Perfectionism can't, and I know that it can. I was saying that I don't think it's that big of a thing for me. That's really what I was meaning.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I could relate to those other things because, again, ignoring intuition, that used to be my number one self-sabotaging trait. And then it was rejecting praise and compliments. And then the last one is not asking for help. And and that's still sometimes an issue for me too. Like, I'm still working through all of these things. It is, will I say that I have worked through them considerably? Yes. But I still have work to do. I still am a work in progress, and I am trying to attain a level of being completely 100% the authentic version of myself. And through that, I'm still going to make mistakes. I'm still going to do certain things depending on the space that I'm in that lead me back to that safety blanket, right? And so it's a constant work. It's a constant work. And so me not asking for help, that's another thing that came from my childhood. Most of all of these came from my childhood. So through not asking for help, that came from being raised by a single mother who was like, don't tell nobody our business. We ain't asking for no help. I got this. I can take care of this. Da, 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 da. Even though I'm watching and I'm like, but you ain't really got this. We need help. Can I call my granny and tell her that we need help? Flag on the play. And it was always, no, keep your mouth shut. So I became an adult that kept my mouth shut. So when I needed help, I didn't ask for help. When people would offer help, no, I don't need your help, I'm good. And then it also came along with, my mom instilled in me, if somebody does something for you, they're going to want something in return. So don't accept anything from people. So it caused me not to ask for help. It caused me not to receive help. It caused me to have this independent, I got to do everything by myself attitude, which became very detrimental to me. Excuse me. So I had quite a few self-sabotaging traits that still trickle in here and there. So I'm going to address some comments because we got 10 minutes left, and then we can close this out. And if anybody has any additional comments before we close it out, now is the perfect time. So let me go back up and look at some of the comments here. And all the comments ain't showing.
All right.
Dana said, oh my God, that's me. I have to embrace receiving compliments. Yes, friend. Embrace receiving compliments. Man, that one was really hard for me, actually. Like, I had a hard time accepting compliments. And then Tam said, good point, Keya. Often women will not accept a compliment. I've had to stop some of my sisters from saying that, but statement. Positive self-talk is everything. And it is. It really is. I do it every day now. See, I've learned from those things.
Yeah. And as a guy, when we compliment somebody, it was like, there's a lot of times we'll compliment a woman, a lady, and we don't want anything in return. We're not seeking the attention from them, or not trying to like say holler at them. We just say, hey, like you smell nice. That's
Yeah.
that looks good on you, and we can just keep it going. That's lovely. We keep it. We're not always trying to pursue them, and we just sometimes like, hey, that looks good on you.
Yeah. What
And
comments do you see on your end, babe? Because I don't. Oh, I
I
see
just,
another one. Tam said, "That's good, Marcus. Self-awareness is a good thing."
well, we working on that self-awareness is a great thing. But like I said, it's, like you said, it's continuous work. And that's another thing of fixing. As I was researching this thing of fixing self-sabotaging is checking in with yourself.
Yep.
Self-check-in is like, okay, am I doing better at this? Is it, am I find myself doing this again? Oh, there go that trigger. I'm retreating back again. Stop, pause, slow down, reevaluate. Let's do this the right way, because we already know with that self-awareness, it didn't work it didn't work the last time, the time before that.
Yeah. It's the reason why I talk about journaling so much, because the reason why I am so in tune with myself is because I'm constantly checking in. I'm constantly writing out, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is, the thoughts that are going through my head. Like, even when it comes to like going to certain places and being around certain people, I journal how people make me feel. And I have to make an assessment about that. Like, okay, that person, I felt uneasy, or I didn't feel like that was a genuine interaction, or I felt like that was a wonderful, amazing interaction. I felt like I was around light. I felt like I was around a supportive brother or a supportive sister. I felt like being out at the park, laying in the sun, like that gave me peace and joy. So, by when you talk about the self check-ins, that's a great way to start. If you are struggling with trying to identify, trying to understand, trying to determine where you are, journaling is a great way to be able to tap in to what's going on with you, which will create more self-awareness, which will also create you becoming more of the authentic version that you are. And as you become the more authentic version of yourself, then you'll identify things a lot more quickly and to your benefit rather than your detriment. So,
And I'm gonna piggyback off that real quick on that, babe.
okay.
Um, with the self checking and how you do it and what you're doing to move forward, to progress, to evolve. One thing, and this as I'll start looking things up, I'm your partner, but more so, I'm also your helpmate. And what you do a lot is that you address those things, those negative actions to me. Bless you.
Thank you.
And that makes me more aware of that. Okay, I'm just happy. She's just having that moment. She's working through it, and it makes me realize I put in perspective this snippet of self-sabotage is nowhere in the magnitude of this big relationship we're in, because you're working on that, keeping it as just a snippet instead of making it grow till it overcomes the relationship. So that
Yeah.
self-checking keeps that in check. And that's what, and I do appreciate that, because I hear you. And I hear what you're saying. And I hear you, like, okay, this is just one of the things she's checking herself. She knows she did it. She's progressing. We don't need to stay on this. We don't need to
Yeah. Thank you for
focus on
saying
that.
that, babe. Thank you for saying that, because I really do try to check myself in the moment, like, or at least very quickly after. So I appreciate you, noticing that and bringing that up, because I I think that's really what helps our relationship too. That is why we have a healthy relationship. It's because the communication is there. I hold myself accountable for all the shit I do, and and that helps you even, like, to be accountable. So when I come to you and say that I have an issue, you don't have a problem with being accountable, because I'm always being accountable. Like,
Hmm.
oh, my bad, babe. I realized, like, I was in a moment that was unfair to you, that was negative. You didn't deserve that, whatever it may be. It's like, by having those conversations, that helps us to maintain a healthy, loving, positive relationship, which is what the goal is for Date Affirm the Real. As we close out, we are not perfect. We are not therapists. We are not giving you advice. We're sharing our version, our story, start and end with that, because this one was kind of a deep conversation where I shared a lot. I was very transparent about my stuff. And so I kept the focus on me, about what I do, so that nobody would feel like we attacking them. I don't
All
want
right.
that.
All right, babe. Before we talk, Tam just wrote something. It was kind of long, so I'm gonna let you read it because I may screw up some words.
It says, self check. Um, Self check has served me well in life. When I decided to go sit down at times and value being still, things become more apparent. Stillness and quiet is something I suggest to get in tune with my life. And then she said, thank you. This was good as usual. Thanks, Tam. We appreciate your support as always. What can we say? Tam's one of our biggest supporters. We love her. Um, and as
That's
we close out, we want to thank everyone that's been on the live. We want to thank you all for your support. We want to thank you all for just constantly showing up. Remember to share this with anybody that you think would find value in this. And Remember to support each other. In this group, there is a group of amazing, talented people. We are doing Sunday shout outs now. Please don't just pass and scroll by those. Actually read those, click on the names, try to connect with those people. Aside from us trying to build a healthy, positive, um, healthy, healing platform, we also want to collaborate and connect with people. So if you find that there's someone in the group that you can work with or connect with, please do that. Please do that. We're in this thing together. So with all that said, I hope that this was good for somebody. I hope, well, all of y'all really, but we appreciate everybody's attention and participation. Any closing words, babe?
Yeah, real quick, what this platform is doing is also it's going to help. Actually, would help us with self-sabotaging. And the key is hang around positive people. If you stay away from the negative folks and go to the positive folks, it leads to a better existence, and that's what we trying to do. And that's what we're going to do. We love everybody in the group. We appreciate everybody in the group. Next week is gonna be more fun talking. Hey, like I said, the Sunday shout out, Tam. Congratulations! I didn't say that to you. I put congratulations in the comments, but congratulations. Um, and if anybody else needs to know, want to do a shout out for somebody, send us a message, and we'll see what we can do.
Or
A
shout
lot,
yourself out. If you want to shout
exactly.
yourself out,
Yeah, self high
send us,
five. God dang it.
yeah, send us
Do
the
it.
information and we'll shout you out. Don't be shy about it. Like, that's the purpose is for us to do this together.
All right, and let's have a good night. And we'll see you next week. We'll see you in the forum. Let's do it. All right.
Peace.
Good night.
Love y'all.